Parkcast, the UK's original theme park podcast.
Welcome back to Parkcast, Park fans. We're a podcast for theme park fans. We're here every week. We're chatting about all kinds of things in the theme park industry, new stuff that's happening, stuff that just grinds our gears. And if you are a theme park fan or a theme park nerd, as we like to call ourselves, you are definitely in the right place. You will love it here. I'm Bex. This is Kev.
Hi, everyone.
And we're joined by Kip Hakes.
Hello.
And we had to bring you back, Kip, once again. I mean, you are part of the furniture now, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm like an old dirty chair.
You're like one of those leather Chesterfields, you know.
Yes.
You've got a degree of...
lots of cracks, odd smell.
Slightly fusty.
Need a bit of Febreze every now and again.
Yeah, exactly.
But you were here a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about the VIP experiences at theme parks, and you'd obviously done the Chessington one. If you've not heard that episode, that is available. Go back and have a listen to it. But you did the Toon Blaster one at Chessington, and we were talking about that and whether these VIP experiences are kind of worth it. They are taking over a little bit. And just at the end, we kind of touched on Fastracks, which are a similar vein to the VIP thing. You pay some money, you get something a bit extra.
Yeah.
And Kev is quite vehemently opposed to the Fastracks in all their many guises. Whereas Kip, obviously, you dropped in that you are a Fast Track princess.
Yeah, happily
spend
being
your
a Fast
money.
Track princess. Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah.
Get me to the front of the queue. And I think it was quite an interesting topic to stumble on. We said we really need to do an episode on it. So here we are doing that episode. And I also put some stuff out on Instagram before we've recorded this. So I've got quite a few responses from you, the listeners of Parkcast, which we will also go through. Very interesting, some very opposing opinions on this subject. It's controversial. And Kip, you put a poll out on your Instagram, and the term you used was it's pretty much like Brexit.
It is pretty much like Brexit. I think at time of speaking, we're at sort of, I think it's 51 for it and 49 against Fast Track. So yeah, It doesn't really get much split than that. I mean, to start with, it was very much against it, and obviously people have kind of woken up and realised that it is a good thing. But yeah, no, it was interesting, and it's nice to see how evenly split it is, because there are sometimes when you put things out on social media, you do feel very much alone and like you're the worst person in the world for thinking Fast Track's a good idea. But my troops have rallied round, and
Yeah, I think it's been a long sort of held belief that enthusiasts in general don't like Fast Tracks because, I don't know why, we're gluttons for punishment. We enjoy queuing. Oh, I think for a lot of it, we kind of do believe that the queue line, when done well, can be part of the experience and can build up the ride. We don't necessarily agree with sort of two-tier park guests and those who can afford to and those who can't. But it's interesting because you've got a 50% split. My responses were also pretty much 50% split, and I think between us we probably do have mostly theme park enthusiasts following us, so that maybe puts that sort of theory to bed that all enthusiasts don't like Fast Track. But I mean, you two have got different opinions. So Kev, like, maybe set out your stall here, make the case for the prosecution of the,
yes, Your Honour.
The removal of Fast Tracks immediately.
There's nothing right or wrong about this. This is something that, theme parks in the UK have, and you're more than welcome to use them or not. That's what, you're not wrong for using Fast Tracks. It's something that the theme parks have given to us. I think my argument is I have 4 points. So I thought four ideas. The first one is that it creates a tier system at a theme park. Every guest should feel important. Every guest should feel like a VIP. Everyone should feel like they're special and have the most amazing day. You have families from all different backgrounds and all sorts of different walks of life. Everyone should feel included and important. And the problem with having a Fast Track is it instantly creates a tier system and makes you feel that unless you have the money to do so, you can't have as good a day. because if you go to a theme park, you know you're going to have to queue. It's a simple fact. And the problem is that it's basically saying, well, if you don't have the money to do so, you're not going to have as good a day as someone who's a bit more wealthier and who might have the money to buy fast track tickets, particularly when they're plastered everywhere. You see them posted up, they're always on the website trying to get you to have to buy them. But you shouldn't have to feel less important if you're not spending more than someone else. My other thing was that it creates congestion in queues. One other thing that really frustrates me is you have your main queue, you then have a fast track queue, and it creates this kind of bottleneck queue line system where obviously they're fast tracks, they're going to get priority. And so what happens is that you're then queuing even longer in the main queue. If you add in the ride access passes as well, particularly on the bigger rides like Wickerman, Smiler, for example, if you've got a big queue, say the main queue is 60 minutes, you've got a fast track queue in there, you've also got your ride access pass in there, you create in just a priority, ride access needs priority as well. So it just creates a bottleneck congestion queue line system.
Do you think, though, that obviously you say, you end up queuing longer, but the queue time reflected on the boards, I guess, takes into account the fast tracks? Do you think you've ever queued longer than advertised because the fast tracks weren't?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And, I think if it's a quieter day, like say if Wickerman is 20 minutes, it's probably not that noticeable. But I think once the queues are getting longer, more people are more likely to buy fast tracks because they can see that the queue lines are getting longer. So more people buy them, which then increases the main queue time. And again, like I say, you've got to have ride access passes for disabled guests as well. So you've got to kind of include that into the mix as well. The other point is that there's no limit to them either. People can keep buying them throughout the day. I haven't seen a limit on fast tracks because it's them. They just get more money. I don't think they're going to have a cut-off point.
Universal do definitely. Universal stop selling them 100% when they sell out.
If you've got a timed one shot, I've obviously not been this year, but especially at Alton Towers, if I've wanted a timed one shot, they did was. I don't know for certain now, but they certainly did have a limit because like the times would get later on in the day as they sold out, and then they would sell out.
I suppose those ones might do.
Yeah,
I think
I suppose there's only so much time in the day,
can't you? Like your gold, silver,
platinum.
It's interesting.
Kind of
Yeah, I wonder if they do. I mean, we'll have to speak to Francis Jackson again. I'm sure he'll know the answer.
Because that's the problem.
If the Merlin parks do.
I don't know if you've noticed at like Fright Nights and at Scarefest, particularly when it's the really busy time of years, sometimes the fast track queue can be out of its queue line. I've seen it like for certain rides where people just keep, like I was saying, they see how big the queue is, so they buy a fast track. But the problem is then it creates a really long fast track queue that you're almost queuing.
Yeah, actually, I had a response when I asked about this. Pierce, Theme Park Pierce, thank you for your response on this one, who said he's very torn, actually, whether fast tracks were good or not. But his reasons for not were he actually had an experience where he bought a fast track and the queue was only about 5 minutes shorter than the main queue line, which obviously you don't expect if you are going to, because they're not cheap. Like at Alton Towers, it's more than your entry fee to get a fast track. I think it was at Thorpe where he got one. And the main queues were 60 to 80 minutes and the fast track was only 5 minutes shorter than that, which that's a problem. If you are going to spend the money on it, you at least expect the service from it. I think Universal guarantee that you're going to have at least halved your waiting time when you buy a fast track, and that's a guarantee.
I think, though, the problem, especially with the Merlin parks, that I've noticed is they have really stripped back the amount of staff they have in the stations for rides. So instead of there being people there, like several people there batching and getting people ready for the next ride, there's just not the amount of people there used to be. So that in itself makes queues slower because a lot of the time the public are sort of wandering around themselves and not knowing where to go or what to do.
Yeah.
like when you've got, say, like a station like 13 at Alton Towers, that is actually usually done really quite well, because there's someone at the bottom of the stairs waiting and going, right, you're on row this, you're on row that, and whatever. And then if someone joins from the fast track or the ride access pass, they're put in the right rows. But because so many rides are lacking in station staff now, especially the bigger rides, it does become a bit of a free for all, and no one really knows what's going on, and it that in itself makes a lot of congestion. So yeah, I think sometimes it's not necessarily the fast track that's the problem, it's just the bad management of the station. And I don't mean that in any disrespect to the staff that are in the stations, because they obviously probably want more people there helping them. And but yeah, I feel like that has, the recent sort of idea of, well, we don't need as many people here, it just causes a lot of issues.
Yeah.
It's very true. And I don't know about you guys or listeners listening, but I'm from a bygone age of remembering where you could go and you get like a virtual queue for like with Nemesis and Oblivion, Kip. You remember like Black Hole having
Back
one
in the day.
back in
Yeah,
the day,
yeah,
and
the
you go with your
system was,
ticket, scan it, you got your ticket back, come back at this time, and
yeah,
I mean Disney are guilty of this as well, because Disney used to do these really well, where you know, you could go to Big Thunder Mountain and get your ticket back later. And then they obviously started including, you know, their magic passes and not magic
Genie
passes,
Plus and all
sorry, but
that.
yeah, to get, you know, more money out of the guests. And it for me, it always looked greedy, because I obviously grew up when a time when you could have a quicker access getting on these rides. And then when
yeah.
they introduce it, it just always felt like, okay, so it just becomes a bit looks greedy to
Yeah,
me
no, no,
as
no,
someone that
it does.
remembers
It
it.
it does. It does. I mean, yeah, like you say, when Fast Track was first introduced into the UK, sort of now, well, the Tussauds Park as they were then, essentially for younger guests who don't know, there would be like a turnstile outside the ride. You'd walk through the turnstile and it would just print a ticket with a time on, and it was completely free, and they only had like a certain number, so if you didn't walk through the turnstile in enough time, then you just wouldn't get a ticket, and that would be tough. But yeah, you'd just get a free ticket with a time printed on. You'd go to the front of the queue at that time and with your ticket, and boom, you'd get on the ride. And it worked. You know, it was unfortunate for people who might have arrived later in the day who didn't get the chance to walk through the turnstile and grab their ticket. But yeah, it was good. But obviously, then we're now in a point where people are like, well, why are we giving this away for free? We can charge people.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of snowballed. But I
Yeah.
am one of those people who will happily pay for it,
Do
mostly.
you pay for it every time you go, or just you like it's a busy day? What's your limit on the queue? So you're like, today's a fast track day.
No, so I quite often go to theme parks sort of on my own for like making content, really. But if I'm going with my family, it's usually sort of like an occasion, so it'll be like might be my son's birthday, and so we will go all out. We will go and stay there, stay in the hotel, and then once we're in the theme park, I just want to be able to do whatever ride, say if it's his birthday, that he wants to do, and not have to queue, because like going to Alton Towers, for example, is a massive drive for us, and you know it costs a lot of money. So I would rather spend a bit more money to make sure that we get everything ticked off that we want to do. But no, I don't. Every time I go, I don't end up buying them. I mean, I bought them to do like videos where I do fast track challenges and see how many rides I can do in a day with fast track and everything like that.
Yeah.
But no, I tend to buy them to sort of almost improve a big day out, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, I tend to avoid the theme parks when they're busy anyway, because
Yeah.
I hate people. And so,
Never have
you know,
guessed.
the more time that I spend in a queue with people, with sort of such terrible people, I just think, no, I'm not doing that. So, you know, I would much rather pay to avoid that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things, you know, if me and my wife Vicky sort of go for a random day out, we probably wouldn't bother, but we'd probably be going at a quieter time when it's not needed anyway. But yeah, for those sort of big fun family days out, I think it's essential.
You're obviously a Merlin annual pass holder.
Yes.
Paul messaged, who's also a Merlin annual pass holder, and he is a fast track princess like you. But
Oh,
his reasoning for it is he pays for his annual pass sort of monthly and doesn't really think about it. So then when he goes to the theme park, paying for a fast track is almost like, well, that's paying for my day out.
yeah.
Do you know what? It's not, you
Yeah,
don't
no,
get that double
absolutely.
hit of I've paid for entry and now I'm paying for
Yeah,
fast
true.
track on top.
That's a good point.
Obviously, he is paying for entry because he's paying for his annual pass like through the year. But actually, I don't think any of us can argue that a Merlin annual pass isn't very cheap, really, for what you get for it per month. If you're paying like what is it? I don't know what it works out to be. It's something like 15 quid a month or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it depends on your thing. I've got
Yeah.
the top one, and I think it's like £19 a month,
Which, yeah,
which is good. Well,
Yeah.
I as much as I moan about them, that it is good value for money.
yeah.
You can't deny that.
So if you're doing that and you're not really noticing that £20 going out, then yeah, I can kind of see why you turn up for the day with your family and you go, right, well, we'll just get fast tracks and get on everything we want to if we're going on a busy day. So that I thought that was an interesting point from him. He also said lots of his friends sort of go out clubbing. They'll easily spend £100 on a night out. He doesn't do that, but he'll spend £50 on fast tracks for himself. And obviously, that times however many people go with you. And he would rather do that, and that's how he'd rather spend his money as a theme park fan, which also, it does make a lot of sense when you kind of put it like that, I suppose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I fully agree with that. It's you feel like you've got a free day out essentially. So yeah, paying essentially the price of the ticket for a fast track, it doesn't feel so horrendous. But then obviously once you sort of scale it up and there's lots of you going, you've all got to eat, you might want to buy some photos and things, it does rapidly go up.
Oh, yeah.
What you're spending money on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely see it from both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
But I think going back to what you were saying, Kev, about it being a tiered system, I mean, that's what life is like, unfortunately. We've got tiers in sort of every aspect of life, from healthcare to seats on a plane to seats on a train. We've got, that is how things work. It's horrible, it's capitalist, but that's how it is and how it's been for a very long time. So yeah, it would be amazing if you could go to a theme park and not have to shell out for fast tracks to have a good day. And that is why I was singing the praises so much of Polton's, because they make it very clear you don't need a fast track here.
Yeah.
Because you don't. They smash through the queues really well. But obviously it is a smaller park. And when I went to Tivoli in Copenhagen, again, there wasn't any fast track stuff because it just wasn't needed. They were just getting the people on the rides quickly and efficiently, no messing, no fuss, and it just worked.
Well, let's talk about a big park who do that, which is, we mentioned them on the last episode, Europa Park.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest theme park in Europe. And absolutely no fast track option ever. What they do offer is virtual queues for some of the big rides, not all of them, but most of them you can get a virtual queue for, and these pop up randomly through the day, so they'll all sort of come online in the morning. People will grab them on the app. If you miss one, that doesn't mean it's game over. You can maybe go back on, just keep randomly checking the app through the day, and they will add more virtual queue spots. That is free. I used it when I was there. It was super efficient. It tells you what time the virtual queue is open for at that point, so you can go, is that going to work with my day or not? So you're not kind of beholden to, right, I've got to be over at Bluefire at 2 p.m. and now I'm right on the, and Europa's a big park, I'm right on the other side of the park. You can make it work for you. You can look at it and go, is that worth my while or not? And actually, this is a point. So Dave messaged me about this. Dave Williams. Hi, Dave. He's quite against Fast Track. And he said, Europa don't do it and it works. You don't feel like a lesser customer. And they don't do discounted entry either. So maybe this is a point, because Paulton's also don't go in for those Kellogg's, Cusson's hand soap, 25% off, 2 for 1s, Tesco club card voucher or whatever it is, they don't go in for that. It's like the price you pay is the price you pay, and that's it. And it might be a little bit more expensive than some other parks. Same with Europa. You're never going to get a discount for a Europa Park ticket. It is what it is. But does that mean they're not having to try and make money in other avenues or make up money by selling Fastracks? Because they're like, no, these are our entry prices. We're standing firm that this is how much it costs to get in here.
How did you find the queues? Because I've never been to Europa Park or anything, but so how did you find the queues when you were there and not having to pay for Fastrack?
Everyone said to me before I went, when I was like, oh, should I go or not? They were like, it's an operational dream. And I was like, all right, okay. And I nearly didn't go because I found out it was a school holidays the week we were going, not for secondary school age, but for primary school age. I was like, oh, it's just going to be overrun and I don't want to have a bad experience. It was flawless. Like genuinely. I was in that park. I went there for 3 days, and every single day I was like, why can all parks not run like this? You know, it was busy. Don't get me wrong. You could tell the park was absolutely full of people, but the queues just worked. Like, I think the longest queue was for their bobsleigh, like the equivalent of Avalanche in Pleasure Beach, which has a dreadful 3-per. Like, we all know how slow the 3-per on that is, because nobody wants to sit between the legs of a stranger.
Nope.
And I think the longest I queued for that was 25 minutes.
Wow.
Other than that, I mean, I did use the virtual queues and had no problem with getting them. They have single riders on pretty much everything. They do parent switch, so if you're going with a younger child like we were, we just used that. That was really efficient. It just wasn't a problem. There was no like hour-long queues. Like, that is unheard of. It's just not a thing. And you're like, I'm in this massive world-class park, and people have said to me before, oh well, you know, coasters go down because they're complicated now. Voltron did not miss a beat for the whole 3 days that I was there. Now, was that a fluke? I don't think so. I just think that coaster doesn't skip a beat because it's maintained and it's looked after.
Good German efficiency.
It's so efficient. And the other thing they do is make sure every seat is full. They will drag people from in the queue. If they haven't got a single rider waiting, they will be like, three, where are you? And they will get them through. And Voltron is a moving platform station, and they will get people onto that train. They will not send it through with empty seats on it. And it's just like indoctrinated into them that they are going to be efficient. Honestly, it blew my mind. Everyone said how operationally excellent it was, and I didn't really believe that it could be possible, but
which is really good. That's really good because,
and
like, say when you think of like when you think of like Alton Towers as an example, or Thorpe Park particularly, there are a lot of rides to try and get in, isn't there? Really, if you think when you're there, so I can see from the point of view of using Fastrack would help because you're thinking to yourself, right, there's so many things we want to do. I can understand why people will, you know, buy Fastracks because they want to try and get as many of those rides in. But it's similar with Europa, isn't it? There's so many rides there.
Well,
but yet you didn't need to use it. You still managed to get on everything, didn't you?
Europa is bigger than Alton Towers. Like, to walk around, it takes longer to walk around than Alton Towers. We added it up. They have over 100 rides. I think Alton Towers had said on their website, I can't remember off the top of my head, it was something like 30 rides, attractions and shows. Or something like, the difference is marked. It's hugely marked. Like, Europa has so many more rides. And bear in mind, I didn't just go for like the big coasters. We had a 4-year-old with us. We did every carousel. We did every toddler ride that there was in that park. And we covered it all. We probably could have done 80% of the rides in one day. And that's every ride. We only didn't because there's too many. Right, you can't physically do that many rides in a day. It wasn't to do with the operations. It was just there's just every corner you turn, it's like, oh my god, there's 6 more rides here. Like, it's just you can't get away from them. But it honestly, it just blew my mind that you can run a park like that and nobody's buying Fastrack. And they did have wrap queues, but not like we have in the UK. And I don't know, I'd love to speak to someone from Europa Park and just find out how they managed that, because they certainly didn't have wrap queues like we see. They had disabled access. There were definitely points for that, and you saw people using it, but it didn't seem to cause the same chaos that we get. And everything's got a single rider, like I said, which I also think just will soak up some of those people who are like, well, I can use a single rider, so I will. Those seats get filled, which means that your main queue isn't filled with people who could be.
And it's always moving as well, isn't it, with those queues? They're always moving. You're not kind of, because that's always a problem I find with ours, because things go down a lot here. There's a lot of stop with our coasters and rides, and it's very frustrating if you're waiting in line. Remind me, did Phantasialand did that? I can't remember.
No,
they don't do fast track either, do they?
No, they have fast track. They don't do single riders. They only have a single rider on Taron and Rake, which is the one thing that I wish Phantasialand did better, actually. I love that park, but yeah, they could definitely do with a couple more single riders. Although somebody told me there's a secret single rider for Fly, but you have to kind of be in the queue. And then at some point they'll split you off. I've never gone through it as a single rider, but apparently that is the case.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
But their fast tracks are different again. So they do offer fast tracks, but they're not like unlimited all day ones. You basically buy one which will get you on 2 rides. They're like a token system. So you spend, say, €20 and that'll be enough for 2 one-shots.
Yeah.
So you basically buy a load of one-shots if you want to do that. But there's only very, very specific attractions that you can also fast track on. Like I would say 80% of attractions at Phantasialand you can't. But yeah, it's really hard, isn't it? Because you can go down the line of, well, yeah, we all want a good day out at a theme park, but should we have to pay? And is this the crux of it? Should we have to buy fast tracks to have a good day?
That's good. Back to my point, isn't it?
Yeah, but the thing is, now we are so far down in this country, especially we are so far down a fast track rabbit hole. Merlin aren't going to change it. They're just going to keep doing it and keep on hiking up the prices slowly and slowly, because it's sort of like an infinite money hack. You know, just the queues can be longer because they've reduced the amount of station staff and the operations aren't as good, and therefore people look at the queue times and go, well, I'll get a fast track, more money for them, and they're sort of they're rewarding themselves for cutting back elsewhere. So yeah, that is the problem. And I think until we have Universal here, or there is more of a seismic shift, it's just going to keep on going and going and going. And obviously, I am a fast track princess, and I will happily spend, I think, like the last time I got platinum fast tracks at Alton Towers, when we went, it was like £110 each. So there was 3 of us, £330.
And that's unlimited then, isn't it?
Yeah, that's unlimited. And and that felt, it didn't feel great, but that felt okay. But it's going to go up and up and up, and there will be a point when I go, no, I'm not doing that, because that is a plane ticket for a couple of us to a different theme park somewhere in the world where you don't need to do that.
That's true.
So there's going to have to be some radical shift for it to change, but I just don't see it happening with Merlin.
Do you find it frustrating as well, Kit, when you've spent all that money, but not all of the rides at Towers you'd probably need a fast track on anyway? There's a good few of them that you probably could just queue 15-20 minutes. Like,
sort of, but then I just think, well, I don't have to. So
yeah.
I think it's more frustrating when, like, you have paid all that money, and although they do sort of quite often pay attention to the fast track queue and let you through quickly, I think sometimes when they don't let you through quickly, that is annoying, and you think, well, I have paid for this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I completely understand it, but we just live in a world where there are tiers and classes to everything, and I'm lucky that I could go and spend that amount of money, but I've not always been in that kind of position. I've had to sell my beloved Bubbleworks sign that I had for a pittance because I desperately needed cash. So I'm not I've not come from money. When I went to theme parks with my parents, we'd always have to take a packed lunch and sit and eat the food, and it was like a real treat, So I'm not some big posh, show off. I just want to make sure that if I go for a family day out, and if I've got the spare cash, I want it to go as quickly and as flawlessly as possible. And the fast track helps that do that. But I do have my limits, and I think that the way prices are increasing, they're hitting my limits now. But there will be people who don't have those limits. They'll be like,
we'll spend any money.
Yeah.
Like we talked about last week, the new option that Alton Towers have introduced, which is the basically the VIP guided tour around Alton Towers, which gets you straight to the front. There's not even a fast track queue.
Straight to the front. You get to choose which seats you want to sit in.
I think it was £300 per person.
It was
in that.
I checked last time.
Something. It was something
like 340 quid, I think it was.
And you know what? I did say it. I probably would do that, but I think I would probably do it more for content rather than a family day out. I would do it to make a video about it and see how it works and test it for the consumer, because I can do that. My channel is at a size where I will get money back from adverts to sort of pay for it essentially. But I wouldn't do that like a big family day out, because that is just ridiculous. As much as I like to be a fast track princess, you've got to have limits. And I think 300 odd pounds each.
It's 340. 340 quid per person.
Yes, sod that. Yeah.
I'll tell you who else said they would do it. Glenn, the notable stranger, he messaged and he was like, I'd be on that like a shot. But he is also like you, and he just says, I just don't queue. I just don't like people and I don't want to queue. And I think if you've got the money to be able to do that, well, I suppose they've given you an option. No one's forcing you to do it. I don't think that's affected queues so much this year. I don't think many people have bought it. I don't think many people even know it exists. But
no, but then that is an additional layer to the class system, isn't it? Because then you've got people queuing in the main queue, you've got fast track people in the fast queue, and then there's sort of like the upper class.
You've got your VIPs,
with your VIP. Come this way, sir. There you go. Which seat would you like? Get off that seat. This person sitting here. So it is. They've added an additional tier with a hefty price to pay for it.
It would be interesting to do it. Do you want to throw some money at that and report back?
We should all do it.
If I was going to Alton Towers this year, I would do that. I would go and do that for the content for sure.
That would be quite funny. I would pay £340 just to see you at Alton Towers this year. I just think
not going to happen. Not going to happen unless. No, I'm not going to say that on the podcast.
I'd give it about 7.5 minutes before you went, for God's sake.
Yeah, probably. Like there's a spit of rain and Spinball Wizard's not running.
I've paid 340 quid. Get me on it.
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? Like we've been talking a lot about ride down times. Imagine if you've spent a lot of money on your fast tracks and 13's down. Rita's obviously still down at Towers.
Yeah.
If it rains, what if the weather is really bad? We know what, unfortunately, in the UK. We get so many rides not operating because of wind or rain. You've spent all this money, and then it's like, sorry, the ride's not operating.
Thorpe Park have gone sort of really crazy on like the sort of weather risks, and I've seen so many people post like the screenshots of the queue times because of like there's been high gusts of winds or maybe like sort of possibility of thunderstorm, and like the whole park pretty much is closed to like all the rides are shut. Can you imagine spending that sort of money and then like they're going weather? Sorry guys. Yeah, it's mad.
Even a normal fast track though, on a day like that, it's not £300, but you've just paid your extra 80, 90 quid, 100, whatever it is, and it's like, so I've fast tracked the rides, but they're all shut. I wonder if you get it back? That'll be interesting to know if anyone's been
I
in
don't
that
know.
situation. Yeah, or if it's
Doubt
like,
it.
no, it's tough. It is
I very
Merlin.
much doubt
Look at the
it.
terms and conditions.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about a park where you really don't need fast tracks. Let's talk about one where you really do. Sadly, it was a park that was one of my favourites for years and years and years. And Amy and Joe Thrill Compass, they messaged me about this one. And they said they'd always get one at Portaventura because they have you have no option at Portaventura anymore. The operations are that bad that even even Kev would be tempted into purchasing
I think
a fast
I would
track.
at only because again, yeah, I would at Portaventura.
Oh, there you go.
Ah, there we go. We've broken him. We've broken him. Kev has fallen.
I've fallen to the dark side, and
But is that because you just think the queues are just intolerable there, or it's because it's hot as well?
no, it's because the queues are intolerable. It's hot. There's queue jumping.
Yeah.
I would much rather. It's just notorious for it, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
is.
I
And
would
it didn't
much
used to
rather.
be.
No, I know, but it's just one of those parks that sadly has gone a bit downhill with that way of things. So I think, yeah, I guess it's different than the UK ones. If I'm suppose I'm going on holiday, I spend a lot of money to go away, maybe, but then we've never used them at Disneyland Paris. And they've started introducing virtual queuing for character meet and greets at Disneyland, which is great because, again, it's the same thing. You just go on the app at the right time, access it, and then come back to your time. And you haven't really had to queue for even the character meet and greets, which is a horrible queue. If you're a parent and you know you've been queuing to meet a character, it is the most mind-numbing thing because it's like there's no theming, obviously, when you queue for a ride, you know. Oh, man. Well, so I was really pleased they introduced virtual queuing for character meet and greets. So, yeah.
And at the end, you don't even get a ride experience. You just have to pretend that this character is, is a
Although
real...
I did
Oh,
meet
yes,
Darth
hello, Winnie the
Vader.
Pooh.
I did meet Darth Vader in Disneyland Paris, which has always been a dream of mine to do, which was amazing. So yeah. But yeah, virtual queuing is great for that sort of thing. But yeah, Portaventura, I think, yeah.
Yeah, Ben's message about this
it,
one as well. Actually, he makes a really good point. He says, FastPass is a solution to a problem that's created by the company operating the attraction, often profiting from poor operations and unreliability of their attractions, is what we're saying.
That is a mic drop moment right there. That is perfect, isn't it? That is just spot on.
Yeah.
Absolutely spot on. That is really, really impressive. I'd like that point. I wish I'd thought of that point.
Well, he goes on to say it means that to make more money equals keeping standards of rides low and no drive to achieve better. The worse the operations, the better the sales on FastPass, tickets or bundles. This has to be the main reason we need to buy them. Look at Portaventura.
yeah.
So yeah, it's does FastPass actually incentivize the park to not be better? Its mere existence means that you might not get someone like Francis Jackson saying, get these queues moving, get it going faster, because actually it means that if they're that efficient, who's going to buy your fast track?
And if you go to Thorpe Park and you see Hyperia's running on one train, what are you going to do?
You're going to buy a fast track.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you know your queue time is going to be double what it would be normally if it's just running on one train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that throws another problem in.
I when I did one, I think it was when I did one of my fast track challenge videos at Thorpe Park. It was in Hyperia's opening year, and I bought like the £100 top tier one to sort of go round, and Hyperia wasn't actually included in that. It was like, yeah, no, you can't have Hyperia. If you want Hyperia, it's got an extra £20. And I paid it for the video, but I just thought that is utterly ridiculous that they're going, yeah, this is our platinum top. Yeah. But the biggest ride here is not available.
Yeah.
Pay more. Yeah, but that's it. We are rewarding their bad operations. Man, I feel so stupid now.
You fell for it.
Yeah.
You bought into it. You're lining the pockets. I want to draw this message into it because we've mentioned her on the podcast before. We were all big fans of Charlotte, Diary of a Roller Coaster Girl. And she messaged about it. And she mentions Disneyland Paris, actually, Kev. She says, now Disneyland Paris has taken away the free fast track. The standby queue for the likes of Big Thunder Mountain is much more manageable. So before, your standby queue is crazy. And now actually there's no fast track option. Everyone gets a slightly shorter queue in the standby. Obviously,
Yeah.
get a shorter queue if you're used to buying a fast track. She says Disney Sea's chaotic with the fast pass, and it's 100% needed, which is interesting. But
That's
places
interesting.
yeah,
Because Disney Sea always comes across as the best theme park in the world. Everyone raves about it, don't they?
maybe they're all buying fast tracks. And
Probably,
I mean, if you are going,
yeah.
trust me, Charlotte hasn't got this wrong. She doesn't get stuff wrong. So if she
No.
says it's 100% needed and you're going to Disney Sea, you buy those fast tracks. But she also says in places like France, they don't want to spend the cash on fast track. So actually, although they've introduced the paid for option, the French are like, no. No, thank you. Non merci.
Yeah, they don't want them putting on yellow vests and like setting fire to things outside the theme park in protest.
So it's actually kind of benefited in that they've made it a paid option. People aren't using it, so now the standby queues are shorter. So she says she's always torn whether it should be a thing or not. She said it benefits her when she wants to get loads of re-rides, but the cash she has to spend in Tokyo is horrendous. So getting someone who's been and visited a lot of parks is also, on the fence about this one, whether they are a good thing or not.
It was the same with Walt Disney World. It's such a nightmare to try and sort out your fast track. But I've always been told it was always needed when you went to Orlando because it was, you're going to get, it's like the busiest theme park in the world. So you're going to have to use some kind of, Genie Pass, whatever it's called, to get on all the stuff because it's going to be rammed. But even trying to do that, I remember trying to do it where it's like months in advance. You're trying to figure out what ride you're trying to use a fast pass on what day because you're going to need it. Yeah, you have to book
I'm going to be
months in
riding
advance.
Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at 20 past 11.
Crazy, isn't it?
Who else has messaged in on this one? George's Theme Park Adventures, never used one. Look how well parks such as Paulton's and Europa Park work without them. I mean, the two parks that on this podcast we have been singing the praises of the most recently are non-fast track parks. I mean, that's an interesting statistic. Arthur says, if they're under £30 and you can get on all the rides, yes. I think the problem with that is they probably generally aren't under £30. I mean, if it's £30 I think Kev would be buying one. But who else we've got? Jack says, no, hate fast tracks, especially bad when you have to get one, like at Portaventura, which is impossible without them. That's just some of the comments. I mean, there's so many. Who's this? Fluffy D. Yes, it gives you back the gift of time to truly enjoy the day without rushing around. I guess that's what you're saying, Kip.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I would much rather be able to sort of spend time, just like say at Alton Towers, just enjoying being there and the atmosphere that it used to have. And, that's how I like it. And just not having to spend all the time in queues. And it does bring you back your time. So you can take a little bit longer at lunch. Yeah. You can spend a little bit longer sort of perusing the gift shop. It definitely does do that. So, yeah.
Martin says, I'd love to say no, but I find myself drawn to them.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the problem, isn't it?
That is the problem. Coaster Collector, absolutely think fast track should always be available in parks that receive the most guests. Becca says, yes, if they're not oversold, coming from someone that rarely buys them, and that's the point that you had, Kev. Are they overselling them? Is there a limit on them? Like I said, Universal, I know that sometimes people will go to buy fast tracks, like, no, we've sold out for the day. I don't know at the Merlin parks. Like you say, I can't remember seeing a time where someone said, yep, there's no more fast tracks available today.
Did you use any at Epic when you were there?
No, we didn't need to.
Okay.
I think if I went back now and it was as busy as it has been in the last few weeks, actually I wouldn't buy a fast track. What I would do is book a night in the Universal Premium Hotel where you then get free fast, although not at Epic at the moment, but I think that'll come. But for like Islands of Adventure, if you book a night in one of the premium hotels, that you then get unlimited fast track with that, which basically works out around the same price as buying a load of fast tracks, but you get a night
good point.
in a premium hotel, which is I like it when parks do little things like that. For example, at Plopsaland, I bought a Ride to Happiness t-shirt, and for buying the t-shirt, I got a free one-shot fast track on Ride to Happiness. Because it kind of tied in with what it's like. Okay, you like the ride that much, you've bought the t-shirt. Here's a quick go around and go on it again.
That's cute. I like that. That's
yeah,
a very nice
and it wasn't
idea.
like a big like, hey, buy this t-shirt, get a fast track. It was like I bought the t-shirt and then like they just handed over the fast track.
Nice.
So it was like a
cool.
nice, as a guest, it was like, okay,
But again, that's what we're talking about. It's that making you feel like a VIP.
Yeah.
So you bought the t-shirt, they give you a fast pass, not because you're buying it because you want to, skip a queue. But that's what I'm talking about in terms of this way of when you want to feel like you're being treated special.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and it, little things like that actually don't cost the park that much. I mean, how many people buy the Coast? If you're buying the Coaster t-shirt, I think that does show, a degree of satisfaction as a guest. So why not increase that satisfaction by treating you again?
Yeah.
Coaster Charles says they can be helpful, but the prices do need to come down. Fairground 7 meter. Now, this is a topical point. Yes, especially for school trip days. So we are well and truly in school trip season. I mean, I am in my season of not visiting theme parks because I can't stand it in school trip season. Kev, you bravely took on Alton Towers.
I like to see if I can race the teenagers to the ride before they do.
And did you succeed?
I like to run, Kit, were you a runner when you were a teenager at theme parks?
Mate,
you used to run?
I used to be absolutely massive. I never ran anywhere. And I never do now. No, we were actually out walking the dog the other day and a man came to pick up a parcel that I was sending and he was just like at the front door and we were around the corner and I was talking to him on the doorbell and I was like, yeah, I'm just around the corner. I'll be there in a minute, mate. And Vicky just looked at me and went, shall I run back? And I was like, yeah, because she knows full well I ain't running anywhere for anything.
Did you beat them though, Kev? That's the question.
Well, this is where I go back to the single rider queue point because it was busy. I don't like to go when it's school trip season, but sometimes you just get that. I need to get my theme park fixed. So I'll just go. But the single rider queues at the minute at Alton Towers are great because people are not really aware of them still
and
because
also,
they've been introduced back. I mean, there wasn't anyone even queuing in the spinball one. Not one person.
And also school kids don't want to go on their own.
Yeah,
they?
they want to
So
go with
they
the
want to
mates,
be-
don't they?
They want
So
to go with their mates
actually,
and teacher, so that's
like, getting on Galactica and Spinball, Smiler, Oblivion was all really quick. So, and then you're not having to stand in a queue with loads of teenagers either as well.
The day we went to Alton Towers, there was quite a few, when we went together, Kev, there was quite a few school trips, weren't there? And I was like, I feel like I'm in the in-betweeners. I'm too old for this. But yeah, well, that's interesting that the single riders don't get too busy. I don't think, I'm not really a fast track person. I'm too tight. But if I went now, I would 100% buy a fast track because the school trip kids are not buying the fast tracks. So if 90% of the park is school trips, if you do spend the money on a fast track, you are probably getting straight on.
Yeah.
So it would be worth it in that sense. I mean, you still have to share the same oxygen with thousands of sweaty teenagers. But if you can get over that.
Yeah. I think if I was going to Thorpe Park, because obviously Alton is my closest one, so I can go whenever in almost the idea of, I don't really want to pay for a fast track because I'll be back again.
Well, yeah.
Whereas if I went to Thorpe Park and it's school trip season, I probably would.
Oh, hello.
That's a second strike.
Yeah.
But I won't be happy about it. I'll do it, but I'll be very begrudgingly do it.
Handing your card over.
That's a very good point, Bex. Yeah, I suppose kids aren't going to be buying fast tracks, are they?
No.
So
the teachers might.
The teachers, in all fairness. But again, the single rider queue is there for that reason. To can get on a ride without having to, pay.
But at Thorpe, there's the single rider queues are massively lacking at Thorpe, aren't they, compared to Towers? So
because I think it's Nemesis and Wickerman Nemesis, Wickerman, and Rita don't have single riders still.
Yeah, well, we'll discount Rita because no one's getting on that.
Not at the minute.
No. But at Thorpe, I think, is it Hyperia and Saw? Is that it?
I think so.
Swarm hasn't got one.
No.
Colossus hasn't got one. Oh, has it? I can't remember.
Actively avoid
I walked onto Colossus when I was there, so I didn't pay attention. Maybe. But
the same at Chessington, didn't Dragon's Fury used to have a single rider, but I remember it used to. I don't think it does anymore.
No, I don't think it does anymore. No.
Mandrill Mayhem doesn't, does it?
Yeah. No, Madra Mayhem does.
Oh, does it? Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm pretty certain it does because when I went there the other week for the VIP experience, I did think about going on it, and I saw the single rider queue, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe. But then it is school trip season, and I didn't want to be sat next to someone else's child.
I mean, I can't think of anything worse than going to Thorpe Park during school trip season. But if you are listening and you are planning it, that our recommendation would be Fast Track, definitely, if you're doing that, and obviously also if you're going to Tokyo Disney Sea, Fast Tracks, please.
Yeah. Just being aware as well, because I think it's interesting when you speak to people. I spoke to someone the other day who was like, I didn't expect it to be this busy. I was like, that's the problem, is people go on a weekday thinking they're going on a day that's in the week where it's going to be quiet.
Yeah.
And they get there and the queue's like all
see the
coaches like an hour long, and you're like, just be careful.
Yeah, June, July, just don't do it to yourself, honestly. Well, look, I'm not sure we've settled anything. I don't think either of you have changed your mind. Although, Kev, you've conceded a couple of points. And Kip, you've also conceded that, it's probably you have to buy them because the parks are not running the way that they should.
Everyone has limits to their finances. And, I know mine, and I know that there will be people who have higher limits. Hello, Glenn, notable stranger. So
he's buying the VIP. I mean, that's who we need to go with. If he's listening, do you want to take us all to Alton Towers? A nice family day out.
Blackpool, please.
Oh, you want? We'll sort you out there with Amanda. I'm sure he will. Someone did comment actually about the Speedy Pass at Blackpool. We haven't mentioned it. They do offer a Speedy Pass at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I've never used it there. I've never been to Blackpool on a day where I felt like I needed to. Yeah. But apparently this season, the queues are a little bit bigger. And again, sadly, I think that's down to operations maybe not quite being what they are. The big one's been on one train a lot. I don't think Icon's been on 3 trains all season. So when you do have a busy day, like their late night opening days are always really popular. There have been some quite hefty queues, and I think someone messaged me and said that they were there and the Speedy passes were getting 2 full trains loaded whilst the normal queue wasn't moving. So that's not cool. I'm all for a bit of okay, you've paid, you go first, but 2 trains? That seems
that's mad.
A bit off. Yeah. But it's an option for you there, Kip, so you'll be fine.
No, I think that's the thing. I think if I went and did Blackpool, I would probably get one of those anyway. Just
you might not need one. I would say if you go to Blackpool, assess on the day, and then make you, because you might not need one. But
I will get there one day.
You will, and then get Glenn to show you around.
Yeah, I'd love that. I love the man. He's a lovely human being.
He is. We'll get him back on the podcast actually very soon. We need to, because we need to talk about his Launchpad soundtrack and Hot Ice, which he's just finished. For now, though, I think that about sums up the Fast Track debate. This will rage on for eternity amongst roller coaster enthusiasts. I think the one thing we can agree on is Europa Park are absolutely smashing it without Fast Tracks. So if every park could just be a little bit more like Europa, we might all be very, very happy guests, and not just enthusiasts. I mean, guests in general. It just goes to show that it can be done. Thank you very much for listening. If you've got any more thoughts on this, the inbox is always open. Always love to hear your thoughts on anything that we're talking about. We will be back next week. If you've enjoyed today's episode, do give us a little rating. Subscribe if you haven't already, so you won't miss the next episode. And for now, we've been Parkcast.
Parkcast, the UK's original theme park podcast.